So pull a chair up. Right now, you're going to hear Future's Past survival story. And yeah, I know this is very graphic, and a lot of you are probably puking right now. And I hope to God I didn't do that to you. But for the stronger stomached people out there, this is what happened to me in January of 2008. And mighty, mighty, mighty tale to tell. Okay, so this is my tale of survival and how I was sort of stupid. And the Darwin Award was awarded to me that day, that fateful day in January, just after the new year rang in of 2008. Okay, so here we go. I was doing something very stupid. It's called like attention deficit disorder stupid. Basically, I was cooking a big giant pot of spaghetti on the stove, and we had a gas stove. And my kids were at school. They were in elementary school at the time. My husband was at work. I was all alone to my devices, and I'm very clumsy. I've had quite a bit of trips to the ER over the past 47 years of my life. And this was my first one of 2008. And yeah, my last. So what I was doing was I was cooking a big, big pot of spaghetti on the stove, and I was multitasking. Note to self, when using a gas stove, do not multitask. And yes, I have a bit of a sick sense of humor, and I sometimes find morbid things funny. It's because that's the only thing you can do sometimes when things are so crappy and shitty. You just need to laugh, right? Well, I was cooking spaghetti. I had the cordless phone. Yes, it was a cordless phone on the crook of my neck, and I was stupidly smoking a cigarette. And I was leaning over the pot of spaghetti, the big giant pot, I might add, probably like a 2 foot tall pot. And I was leaning over it and not paying attention and bullshitting with my mother on the phone and taking a puff out of my cigarette at the same time when the flame from the stove, because I was reaching over for the timer to time my spaghetti. And yes, us Italians take our spaghetti seriously. And I was leaning over to time it. And when I was pressing the buttons on the timer, the hem of my polyester shirt, and note to self, never wear polyester because it's highly flammable, caught up in flames. And it was so fast what was happening to me that I couldn't really like feel like like this was like happening. It was almost like shocking. It shocked me. And you know the old saying, like the deer in the headlights? I was the deer in the headlight at that moment. I froze. Now, either you can stop, drop, roll, run, or fight, or actually freeze like a moron like I did. And I froze. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I said, I have to go right now. I'm on fire. And I threw the phone down. And with that, I just stood frozen like a mannequin as the flame kept growing higher and higher and higher towards my face. And at that point, I realized you have to do something, and you have to do something fast, or else you're going to die. The flames were getting hotter and taller. At this point, it had reached my tits. Excuse my French. Yes, my boobs. My boobs started burning. My bra and my shirt actually melted into black liquid. Like, I swear to God, like picture your clothes turning into liquid. Well, it dripped off of me, and I was naked from the waist up. And at that point, as I was freezing and standing like a mannequin, I said, what am I going to do? And I grabbed, the sprayer in your sink, and I turned the water on, and I put the fire out. But at this point, it was so bad, it melted my arm. My arm was completely melted, and my shoulder area, and on the side of my breasts. And I totally was terrified. And I just stood there with a dumb look on my face, I can imagine, because I didn't see the dumb look on my face, but it was a dumb look, I'm sure. And I just said, what the hell am I going to do now? And the first thing that went into my mind, now, can you believe this? I remember, was, oh, shit, I got to go to the hospital. And the hospital is not the type of place that anyone wants to go to. So what did I do? Instead of calling 911, I called my husband up screaming, I just caught on fire. And he said, what? And he was like, okay, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I caught on fire. I'm burned. You have to come and get me and take me to the doctor. So like a normal person would just, like I said, call an ambulance and just get to the doctor. Not me. No. Again, Darwin Award. I'm surprised I'm alive. And so he picked me up, threw me in the car. Now I threw a coat over me, and I had a bag of frozen peas on my shoulder area and under armpit area. And I was screaming bloody murder. And he took me to the local hospital, which is a really, really big, giant hospital that everybody seems to go to. And we walked in, and do you hear that? My dog is squeaking his squeaky toy. All right. Thanks for the interruption. And so we went into the hospital, and it was filled with people waiting to be called. And if anyone's ever been in an ER, you know that situation, right? And so they told me, take a seat, ma'am. Put your name on this list, and we'll call you when we're ready. And yeah, my dog is a clown right now, squeaking his toy. All right. So I said, no, and I lost my temper. Now, I'm one of those people that do not ever confront people, never get into fights. I'm a peace-loving person. I lost my shit. I kicked the security guard's desk over, which was a big, giant metal desk planted in the middle of the ER. And I kicked his desk over. Don't know where I found that power. And then he said, ma'am, I said to sit down. And I said, no. And with that, I kicked his waste basket, like his garbage can, which was a big, heavy metal garbage can, across the ER. And I picked up his giant chair with wheels on it and threw it at him. And with that, he said, okay, something must be wrong with this chick. And he brought me into triage. And when the nurses saw me, they said, holy shit. Yes, they did say that. They said, ma'am, we can't help you here. We have to send you to like a trauma center. And they called an ambulance. And as they were shooting me up with sedatives, yes, it was like tranquilizer dart guns because I was going wild. And they shot me up with morphine, which did not help. They, what do you call it, put me in the ambulance. Now, as I got in the ambulance, I was terrified. By the way, these are my injuries. This is my armpit. Like if you raise your armpit area, this is it right here. This is where the shoulder is. And here is my armpit. Yes, this was the injuries. And there was a big, wonderful, angelic black man. He was about 6'4" and an angel in scrubs. And I'll never forget to the day I die, his name. On his name tag, it said Kirk. And I called him Captain Kirk. I said, Captain Kirk, please help me. That's how crazed I was in pain and shot up with sedatives. Yeah, tranquilizers. And Captain Kirk was an angel, an absolute utter angel. He treated me with kid gloves, and I cried and I said, well, will you save me, Captain Kirk? And he said, yes, ma'am. And he started, because they took away my frozen peas in the ER and said that it could destroy my nerves and, it could freeze them and some more injury could happen to me. Well, he took bottled water, frozen, sterile bottled water, and started squirting it on me to cool me down because the heat from the burns and the char from the injury felt like the feeling of 1,000 hot suns burning on your skin. Yes, I'm not kidding you. And so I said to him, thank you, Captain Kirk. And oh my God, the guy, if I can find him, I would give him the greatest, biggest hug if I can find this man, which I probably will never see him again. And he pulled up, when the driver pulled up at the trauma center, Captain Kirk was sitting there tending to me. And I said to him, Captain Kirk, I'm probably not going to be able to have a cigarette for a very long time. Can I have a last cigarette? And I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. Yes, I'm nuts. He actually put a cigarette in my mouth and lit it up and let me smoke a cigarette in the ambulance. And that was my last cigarette for 30 days while I was in the burn unit. Now, this is my shoulder. I'm going to show you. And this is my under armpit. And this is staples, as you can see here. This was after a surgery. This was after my first skin graft operation. And you can see the skin that it's like mesh that they put into the injury that actually sadly got an infection and fell off. Here, you can see my skin was char-broiled. This was like melted skin that blackened and charred. So here's me, a further picture that's where you could see more of the injury. The shoulder. Here's the armpit. Now, as you can see, half of my arm is missing. So if I was to draw a line from my bicep and go across, you could see like more than half of my arm is missing. It should have been from here to here. You could see the broil of the skin from the melting. And it was 3rd and 2nd degree burns. It was so bad you can almost see my bone. And I'm sorry I have to show you these pictures, but I'm sure there's a lot of medical students out there that would love to see it. Okay, speaking of medical students, the doctors only saw me like twice a day, but the nurses did all the work. And I give all my credit to nurses. So if you're a nurse and you're watching this, thank you for your service. Now, the doctors were great too, but I was looked at sort of like more of a wound than a human. They'd never talked to me. They never gave me eye contact. They just actually treated the injury and not the human. The nurses were the ones that gave me the empathy and love and companionship and help that I so needed at that time. And let me tell you something, I couldn't look in a mirror without crying my eyes out because I was mourning the loss of part of my body that was missing and melted off. Here's my underarm pit. Here's part of above my breast. You can see the charbroil of the skin. Now, this picture was taken 2 weeks after my injury. So you can imagine how much worse it was at the time. Here's staples, and this is my underarm, and here's up here towards my shoulder. This is my injury. Now, I begged them every single day, please, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And that's all I could remember begging them because I was in a drug stupor because they gave me morphine intravenously constantly. And I was like drugged up. And let me tell you something, the morphine did not even help. The pain was so bad. It was like picture having a branding iron, burning hot and pressing into my underarm and shoulder and the side of my breast, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, what you're seeing here is my upper thigh, my upper leg. And they had to shave off layers of my skin to give me skin graft operations. Now, after the first one failed, they had to do it again with my other leg. This was the pain, again, like I said earlier, of like 100 hot burning suns. Picture a sunburn times 10,000. That's what my upper thigh felt like. It was awful. Now, here's me after a month, after my skin graft operations, and the healing process was beginning. And it was not actually a very quick healing process. It took over 1 year before I could even raise my arm up again. I was told I would never be able to even do that, raise my arm up. But I ended up fighting through that and not listening to the doctors and working on that where I can now raise my arm. Not as high as the other one, but it's good enough. And here's the injury healing. This was after about 3 months of leaving the burn unit, maybe 4 months. And here's me now. This is the horrible injury, the scars. Now, I could get plastic surgery for that, but I want to stay away from hospitals and doctors as much as I can because it is the most horrible thing to have to get medical treatment, especially with pain, because to this day, I still feel pain in all these areas. It's good days and bad days. Here's my underarm pit area and the top of my shoulder. You could see this was a year later. And so that's my survival story. So I'll tell you something right now. The worst pain you can actually survive is a burn injury. The pain is so outrageous, so horrible. I would rather give birth 5 times in a row, one after the other, without an epidural than go through a burn injury ever again. So note to self, don't cook spaghetti. Yeah, ma spaghetti, a little M&M joke for you, while being on the phone and smoking a cigarette and not paying attention, because this can happen to you. And yes, Darwin did pay me a visit that day, and I won the Darwin Award. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'm sorry I had to make a lot of you nauseated. So long.